on WCAB.
Signal. That marks the beginning of my program because, as we know, taxation with representation has not been such a good idea either. And we're going to talk about representation today. I'm actually going to talk about audits. It's just, there's been a lot of talk about audits. The IRS hired 87,000 armed former Green Beret agents, right? It just depends what politician you listen to, that are going to come storming down your street, and they're going to audit you within an inch of your life and take all your money. I mean, literally, it was portrayed that way. That's not what's going to happen, but we want to be smart about this. The IRS is hiring more agents. They need to. 50% of the IRS's workforce is going to retire. I'm going to get into all of that. It's really interesting. And I'm going to talk about audits. What is an audit? How do you prepare for an audit? And I'm going to talk about what you can do now, just the reality of running your business every day. There's a lot of myths out there about how to run your business and what kind of receipts to keep and those kind of just basic nuts and bolts things. But the program is Gilbert Talks Taxes. I am Gilbert. I am an enrolled agent. I'm also a financial planner, fully licensed to represent you before the IRS, to help you with your investments. What makes me unique, I don't just prepare a tax return. I don't just do financial planning. I'm always looking at the tax implication of running your business and preparing your tax returns. With me today, soon to be here, she's been working. She's been working, Tom, my engineer this morning, Tom. Emily's researching all the way to the last minute. I think she just pulled in. Is that her? Maybe? No? Anyway, she's supposed to join me today at some point. I hope she does, because it's always fun when Emily comes. Emily's also an enrolled agent. Also enrolled with the IRS. There she is, researching all the way to the last minute.
There wasn't much information, sorry.
There wasn't much information on that topic. We're going to talk about that topic. We're going to talk about North Carolina. We're going to get into that. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning.
Here, live radio. Thank you. Live radio at its finest here on WCAB AM 590, FM 100.9. Good morning.
Good morning.
It was not that cold this morning, so
Are you kidding? It was 25 degrees and my windshield was frozen over.
Okay. Okay. Did you bring a slip? That is cold. Your hands are cold. Did you bring a slip to give to your boss? Emily works for me. She's an enrolled agent. We now have 2 enrolled agents at the office to better serve you. So since you missed my intro, Emily, what I'm going to talk about... Oh, you were listening in the car. Okay. We're going to talk about audits and what's going to happen with audits. Now, you did research a little bit about North Carolina and what's going on there? Okay, well, I'll let you talk about that in a minute. We probably know more than most of them do about what's going on. Because it's really, there's an information, I've noticed this. There is an information, a downhill information gap. In other words, the IRS will make a press release. And, of course, we as professionals, you get the IRS feeds coming to your phone daily, right? Yeah, I used to do that till you started working for me, and I'll let you do that. Because, really, it's how many come a day? 5, 6, 7?
Can be.
Yeah, as many as. Sometimes.
Depends on what you sign up for. I think I have the minimum.
You have Well, when I first started, I would get them all. Not for profit. I would get small business, large business. You get them all. And then after a while, you just realize what you really just want to focus on. Individual, and then there's compliance, there's payroll, it's endless. So it is a lot of information, but you would think the people that work there would be getting these feeds too. And then you get on the phone with them and you go, well, I just got pronouncement, 2-9-2023. And you hear like paper shuffling. You hear, they said that? Yes, they did. They said that. And I'm going to talk about one of those things, a little known rule. Did you ever hear of the Cohen, I want to say Cohen, but Cohen rule, as in George? Is it, Tom, is it George Cohen or George Cohen?
Cohen.
It is Cohen.
Yeah.
Cohen, okay, because I want to say that right. George, as in Yankee Doodle Dandy, remember him? You might be too young for this, Emily. You remember? You know exactly who I'm talking about.
They show whatever Jimmy Cagney.
Yankee Doodle Dandy in the movie, but in real life, he was a Broadway producer, director, star.
He was before even my time.
That was before your time, Tom?
I'm ancient, so.
Well, he was audited in the 1920s, and I saw 100 years ago, actually, and it went all the way to the U.S. Court of Appeals. I want to talk about that in a minute. The Cohen rule, actually Cohan rule. Actually, today, you really want to have an IRS agent shuffle through papers. Mention the Cohan rule, and you'll get this glassed over. See, it's C-O-H-A-N. Okay, Cohan. Okay, the Cohan rule. And it still applies today. I'll talk about that in a little bit. We're going to talk about North Carolina. So I said these rules come down. They don't even get them. So North Carolina said that they're not, it doesn't look like they're even accepting e-files at all. Everything I've sent down the drain, that's what we call it in technical talk. When you send it up to the server, we said, well, the IRS actually calls it that.
Down the drain.
Down the drain, yeah. They say, did you put that down the drain? The first time I heard that, I said, huh? He goes, did you e-file it? I said, oh, that's a good euphemism for that. Yeah, down the drain. So put it down the drain. So far, they're just coming up as pending. Okay, we're going to talk about business returns, some myths up there about receipts, what receipts you should keep, what documents you should keep, and what happens in an audit. Going to talk about the Cohen rule, and you're going to talk about North Carolina DOR a little bit. Other than that, we've had just a normal week. Tax season started. The official date to e-file, to start e-file, was Monday. And everything was going good. We've had a few technical glitches, but so far we've e-filed quite a few returns. Everything's come back accepted, except for, like I said, North Carolina, everything is still just sitting as in a pending status. South Carolina, everything's come back accepted. So, and I said at the end of the year, I said, I'm really optimistic. I really felt like the service was going to come back in, and this year they were going to try to make this year smooth. I just felt like that was it felt like that was their mission. I don't know if you got to listen last week, but I talked about our girl Erin Collins. She issued her report that she has to issue. I started to read it. It's pretty long, and then there's a lot of technical stuff in there that most people, wouldn't want to waste their time with. But she started by saying the 2022 tax season, which was last year for filing 2021 tax returns, provided general misery for all the taxpayers. So misery, I thought, and then she said, and it was continued misery through the tax season, which I thought was really good. The thing about her report is that Congress has to act on it. In other words, you and I can sit here on this radio program and talk about, all the things the IRS should do, and people can write their congressmen, and they can all get, especially during the election cycle, they can all stand in front of the cameras and propose this and propose that. But none of that's got the teeth of the law behind it. When Erin Collins writes her report twice a year, Congress has to respond within 90 days. 50 of her suggestions have become law. And she's only been doing it since March of 2017. Yeah, have become law, actually codified in law. So her big suggestion, that I made a big deal about last week, was that tax preparers should be certified, licensed, monitored, and only those that are certified, licensed, and monitored should be allowed to do tax returns, which is what California does. California, you have to be an enrolled agent, which is what we are. You have to be a tax attorney, specifically a tax attorney. I don't know how they do that through the bar, if there's a bar for that, or what your credentialing is, but tax attorneys and CPAs licensed in the state of in the state of California have to be the only ones that can do them. Now, they do extend courtesy, and other CPAs from other states can prepare tax returns as long as you're in good standing in your state, and then, of course, all enrolled agents. So
can they use TurboTax in California?
Can they use TurboTax in California? So I'm sure they do. I'm sure somebody figures out a way around it. right? I mean, God gave us 10 commandments, and we figured 10,000 ways around each one. I'm sure they do. So the rule is this, so you out there listening, you want to prepare your own tax return, which I'm all for that. I'm all for self-prepared. I actually had a man this week who paid me for my time to tell him how to do his estate tax return. He actually wanted to do it. I was like, fine. And he knew what he was doing. He'd been doing tax returns before. He'd done his own forever. And his father passed away. It was a small estate, and he just had some very specific questions. And he said, well, I would really like to do it. I just really enjoy doing it. I said, great, have at it. Here you go. I paid for an hour of my time, and I gave him he felt it was great advice. And a lot of it he'd already been looking up online, and but he just didn't know. There's some decisions that need to be made. But I'm all for that. I think that is, when you force people to go to a professional, it really, I think, takes the people out of the equation. Like one of the great things about small claims court in this country is that you can actually go to small claims court yourself. You do not have to have an attorney. And of course, it's getting almost impossible now to do that because the laws are so complicated that unless it's a very, very small thing, you almost have to have an attorney just to understand the paperwork. But one of the reasons I started this program was for people to, number one, to not be so afraid of the IRS, not be so afraid of those letters you get, because they panic. They get a letter in the mail from the IRS, and if it's not a check, we all know what that IRS check looks like, right? We're like, oh, before you even open it, oh, look. But you get a letter, and it's got, it's that big window envelope, and it says IRS up there, and I get letters with my name on them for people I'm representing, and even when I get that letter, I'm like, what's this one about? Yeah, I have to catch myself, because I know it's just a matter of business, and I get, 20, 30, 40 of them a month, and I'm still like, and when I see just my name on it, because usually they'll have the client's name and then my name under theirs, but when it's just my name, like,
All you.
it's all me. This one's all me. What is this one about? And then sometimes it'll have my name and Christy's name on it. It's like, honey, come here. You can share this with me. But it shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. But unfortunately, it is. So I talked about our girl, Erin. She really had some great suggestions. And I really hope Congress listens because they were very, very good. One of the biggest problems the IRS says is these abusive, what they call them, abusive tax shelters. But who's coming up with this stuff? It's not the people at home. It's those of you listening. You're not sitting around, honey, let's open up a bank account in the Bahamas and let's funnel all that money, all that money that we don't have. Let's funnel all that through this bank. And it's these tax preparers. They've traced it back to that. Unlicensed, uncertified, unanything tax preparers, or you get in the other ditch where you got these super high-level CPAs and tax attorneys coming up with these complicated schemes. But the IRS says if we can deal with the low-level stuff, the low-hanging fruit that just is blocking our system, and it's the tax returns that, because they have to deal with every tax return that gets sent, whether it's garbage or not. And that's the 6 million tax returns that they have to kick out every year. They'd be able to function better. So let's go ahead and take a quick break here. WCAB AM 590 FM 100.9. This is Gilbert Talks Taxes. As we get ready for this year's tax season, there's one thought on everyone's mind. Will Gilbert's hair look fabulous this year? Oh, yes, it will. How can I say that? Because I go to Robin Saunders at RSL Salon. Whether it's a good haircut, a pedicure, or a manicure, you can count on RSL Salon. Call Robin at 828-289-9110 because everyone deserves to look fabulous.
Hi, I'm Sandra. My husband Peterson and I own Precision Detail and Tint. We invite you to come to our new location at 620 U.S. Highway 64, Rutherfordton, on the corner of Silvers Lake Road and Highway 64. Whether you need specialty detailing for your car, RV, or boat, or window tinting for your automobile, or home or business, we can help you. Voted Best of Rutherford County for 11 straight years, you will know you will get quality work at a good price. Stop by for an appointment or call 245-8889. We're open Monday through Friday 9 to 5 and Saturday 9 to 1.
We are back. Oh, let me talk in the microphone. That might be better. We are back. Gilbert Talks Taxes. I am Gilbert Carmona, an enrolled agent. Now, if you need me to do your tax return, Emily and I and the rest of the staff, we are doing tax returns. Are we ever doing tax returns? We are getting them done, too. Our telephone number is 828-289-9300. You can call, make an appointment, come on in. You can just drop off if you happen to be by at 704 Oak Street in Forest City.
The drive-through works.
The drive-through works. Emily has the drive-through working, and people can come, and you don't even have to get out of your car. That is really convenient. I think it's convenient.
You get fries?
Do we get fries? No. We do need to get little doggy treats, though. We do need to get doggy treats and lollipops. We really do.
Madeline and I are voting for Hershey's.
Hershey's. We need to get little Hershey's chocolates there at the window. Somebody pulled up with their debit card the other day.
Realized we weren't a bank and said, oh, never mind.
And just kept driving. Well, it was a bank, and it was a bank for a long time, and I'm surprised we haven't had more of that. We did have a man walk in when we were still remodeling it and wanted to cash a check, and I know it was a very...
Somebody circled the building looking for the ATM.
Yeah, they were looking for the ATM. The ATM's... Well, the thing about that is that bank hasn't had an ATM for 10 years. I thought, you were really behind the times. No, Carter Bank does not even have ATMs. I know. Somebody told me they didn't even have debit cards until recently. Yeah, they still faxed things in. Oh, I've heard it. People have come in and told me all kinds of stories. That's why they're not open anymore. That's why now it is the new home of Gilbert Talks Taxes. Carmona Financial Consultants, which I think Christy will be announcing that shortly. We are Carmona Financial Consultants, 704 Oak Street, Forest City, right next to Big Dave's Fish Camp. We'll still have our Tryon office. We are at 226 South Trade Street, the beautiful Art Deco building right off the historic downtown Tryon. And I was showing some people pictures of that building this week. The pictures are from 1953. I've got some great pictures of that building. It was a gas station back in the 50s. It's great pictures. So that office is open, and we are full service there. Thank you, all of you in Polk County that come there. But I know a lot of people have wanted to come by and see the new building. They've been coming over here. They've been crossing 26. Yeah. People from Tryon don't leave Tryon. That's what I tried. People are, why do you have an office in Tryon? Because people in Tryon do not leave Tryon. It's like there's a border wall at 26. They just don't cross it. Now, they'll go down to Greenville, they'll go up to Hendersonville, but they want, I asked them, I said, well, I'm in Rutherford County. I've had a few say, where's that? It's the next county over. It's just on the other side of Columbus. Yeah, that county, the one on the other side of Columbus. Yeah, it's the funniest thing, but they're there in Tryon, and really everything they need is right there, including Gilbert Carmona to do their tax returns. I want to share, I share that scripture a lot. And one of the reasons that we do the program, is we want to talk about what truth is. And I say this scripture a lot, and I've actually had some people ask me, well, where is that in the Bible where I share that? And the main scripture that you hear me say a lot is Isaiah 44, 1 through 20. And I usually just read 20, which is the man that makes an idol doesn't even stop and say, what is this thing I'm holding in my right hand? Is this thing truth that I'm holding in my right hand? But this whole chapter is really interesting, and it starts in verse 2. It says, thus says the Lord, who made you and formed you from the womb, who will help you. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, whom I have chosen. And I'm reading out of the Amplified, and I'm kind of cutting it short a little bit, but I'm encouraging people, go back and read that. In whatever version you read, this is really, I think, a powerful chapter. For I will pour water upon him who is thirsty, and floods upon the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon your offspring, and my blessings upon your descendants, and they shall spring up among the grass like willows and poplars by the water courses. One will say, I am the Lord's, and another will call himself by the name of Jacob, and another will write upon his hand, I am the Lord's, and surname himself in the name of Israel. Thus says the Lord, the King of Israel, his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts. I am the first, and I am the last. Beside me there is no God. Who is like me? Let him stand and declare it. Fear not, do not be afraid. You are my witness, and is there a God besides me? And then he goes on and talks about the idols. All who make graven idols. Graven idols are confusion, they're chaos, they're worthlessness. They're objects, don't delight, there's no profit in them. And then it just goes on, talks about how the ironsmith sharpens a tool, how the carpenter stretches a line, and they go ahead and they cut down a cedar tree or they cut down an oak tree, and they take that piece of wood, and it's the same piece of wood they use to make a fire to cook their meal. It's the same piece of wood that they used to make some other thing around their house, and then they take a piece left over and they carve it and they make an idol. A useless block of wood without consciousness or life. And then in 20, that kind of man feeds on ashes and finds his satisfaction in ashes. A deluded mind has led him astray so that he cannot release or save himself, and he doesn't even ask, is not this thing I hold in my right hand a lie? So the reason I'm sharing that, and I always share that, is because when we're doing people's tax returns, when we're doing investments and investment planning, one of the things that I purpose in my heart to do is to ask God what to do about you and your situation, because you are unique. Your situation is unique. What is truth? What is the truth? What is truth, and what has God got to say about this situation? Because God's got something to say about everything, Emily, everything. There is no detail too small. You know, we planted flowers in the fall. We've got our little winter flowers, and I see, you know, we had a lot of rain, and some of them little ones are starting to flower. And there's some buds on those roses, those knockout roses already, because we rained, we had some warm weather, and there's little buds. And I'm looking at the detail in those little buds. There is nothing too small for God. Every detail matters. So we ask, what is truth? And you know, Pontius Pilate, I share that one all the time. He was staring truth in the face, and he said, what is truth? And he turned around and walked away. I don't want to be like that. I want to acknowledge truth. And the other scripture I wanted to share was in John. Specifically, I want to read John 9, 25 and then 36. We all know the story. This is Sunday school, Sunday school 101. Jesus heals a man, blind man, and the Pharisees absolutely just literally are just crazy with anger. They accuse the man. They call the man in to explain himself, the man that was healed. To explain himself, they call in his parents. They called in the man again, and he answered them. So after this went on, for multiple verses, this goes on. The reason was Jesus did it on the Sabbath, and the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and all the leaders said, you can't heal on the Sabbath. You can't do good on the Sabbath, basically is what they were saying. So they wanted an account. So they called the man in, and the man answers them, I do not know, because in 24, they called him in a second time. They summoned the man. They said, the man who had been born blind, and said to him, now give God the glory. This fellow, we know. That they keep saying that. We know. We know this, we know that. Truth of the matter is, they knew nothing. And that's what I see in this chapter. And that's how I want to be. I know nothing. Yeah, I know a lot. I've got a radio program. I'm a financial planner. I've got licenses. But really, I know nothing. Unless God tells it to me, I know nothing. And he said, we know this fellow's only a sinner. And he answered, I do not know whether he is a sinner or wicked. But one thing I know, I was blind, but now I see. They got really upset at him. They kicked him out. And of the synagogue, poor guy, here he gets healed and he gets kicked out of the synagogue. But in 35, Jesus heard that they'd put him out, and Jesus went to meet him. And the man said, because don't forget, he had not seen Jesus. He was blind. Jesus healed him and Jesus left. So he had not seen Jesus. And he answered, Jesus heard that he said, and Jesus said to him, do you believe in and adhere to the Son of Man, the Son of God? And the blind man answered, who is he, sir? Tell me, that I may believe in and adhere to him. So I'm just encouraging everybody this morning to seek truth. There is a truth, and there is a God, and he is a rewarder of those who seek him. Let's go ahead and take... Deb, did you no? Okay. Let's go ahead and take a real quick break, and I'm going to come back, and we are going to talk about, let me talk about the deadlines that are coming up, tax forms that are due, and I'm going to talk about some businesses and receipts and all that kind of stuff. This is Gilbert Talks Taxes, WCAB, AM 590, FM 100.9.
This is Kimberly. If you owe the IRS for prior years or you have unfiled tax returns, don't call those national toll-free numbers. Affordable, secure, and local help is available for you. Call Gilbert at 828-289-9300. Gilbert is an enrolled agent permitted to practice before the IRS. Taxation is his specialty. He knows the latest laws to help you with your problem. Avoid garnishments, levies, and liens. All initial consultations are free. Call Gilbert at 828-289-9300.
A good sign is good business. Make your business stand out with a professional sign from Diaz Signs and Graphics. Successful companies all over the United States trust the team at Diaz Signs and Graphics. With 25 years of professional experience, we have the ability to present your company's image in the best light. Not only display signs, but Diaz Signs and Graphics can print banners of all sizes. If you need magnetic signs or window and vehicle graphics, call on Diaz Signs and Graphics today. We offer a full line of sign products for any event. 3D, sandblasted, storefront, and monument signs are just a part of a complete selection of quality signage. Professional signs and banners to fit any budget. Let your business stand out. Call Diaz Signs and Graphics today at 286-4900 or stop by the sign shop located on Main Street in downtown Spindale. And check our website for more suggestions at DiazSignsandGraphics.com.
We are back. Gilbert Talks Taxes. Gilbert and Emily talk taxes. WCAB AM 590 FM 100.9. We need to get up with Alex and Yvette and have them do a new commercial. They have moved. They have moved to a much larger location. They really needed a much larger location. That business is just doing wonderful. I am so excited for them, how it's going for them. We need to get, we did this a few years ago, Emily. We used to bring some people in here and interview them. We had Keith in here talking about flipping homes and what was involved in flipping homes. And we've had a few. We need to do that again. I'd like to get small business people. I said it last week. Kimberly, who, thank you for that wonderful endorsement, Kimberly. Kimberly's husband is a small business owner. I'd love to get him in here. He's very interesting, his business. Alex and Yvette, they got a wonderful business. There's other people, too, clients that I have. They just have fascinating local businesses that you would never even know are here because they're not, they're very niche like them. Unless you need a sign, the average person wouldn't go see them. And it's fantastic what they're doing. It's the kind of business, they've got the kind of business you'd have to go to Charlotte or Greenville really to find. TCT, the Integrity Granite and Marble. They're really doing fantastic work there. Okay, so let's go ahead, Emily. Let's talk about North Carolina Department of Revenue. Originally, what did they say?
I thought they said February 18th they were going to open the gate or whatever they're calling it.
They call it the gates,
server.
not the drain. They call it the gate.
But I guess this week they decided to change their mind, and it said that they officially begin accepting 2022 income tax returns for estates and trusts on Friday, January 27th. They will announce the opening date for partnerships, corporate income, and franchise returns as soon as it is confirmed. I don't see where us little people fit in, like the individuals that doesn't have a date specifically.
Yeah, originally there was an email that we received at the beginning of tax season. I want to say, I can't remember. It was that first week, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in there. You get that flurry of emails from all these, I get them from all these states and all that we're registered in. And all it said was there were going to be delays in processing tax returns this year, and to tell our clients that this would impact their refunds, that they were not going to be, that refunds were going to be coming out late. So we've just been telling people, basically, don't hold your breath on this one, because we have no idea. We have no dates. So, and again, we're e-filing these tax returns, and they are just sitting on the server in what we call a pending status. So that means they haven't even received them. So they're not even taking them in the gate. Now, I've only done a few business returns that I have noticed. Those are sitting in pending too. You said Friday. I didn't. I'll check this morning.
Yeah, estates and trusts, I think, is what they started taking Friday.
Yeah,
So,
none of my businesses have come back yet as accepted. So I am watching that. Which it's we do a lot of South Carolina returns. Being here where we are, a lot of people either have a business in South Carolina or work in South Carolina, so they have a South Carolina, tax return that they have to file. And so there's a lot of South Carolina. Those come back right away. South Carolina's always been very proactive, very on top of it. Their DOR is pretty sharp. Not that North Carolina's isn't. I don't want to say that, but there's some ambiguity going on here. Now, if you owe your North Carolina withholding, then you're a monthly filer. Normally, those are due January 15th. I'm sorry, those are due the 15th of the month, except January. It's not due January 15th. It's due January 31st. So, which I don't know why they do that, but that's every year. So those are going to be due Tuesday. That's your final withholding for 2022, your 12/31 final withholding. And of course, all you businesses have to have your W-2s and your 1099s in the mail. If anybody's actually still mailing them, just about everybody's doing email now, or they hand deliver them. But very few people are mailing anymore. But they have to be in the mail, postmarked January 31st. Now, does that mean, Emily, that people can run in February 1st and do their tax return without their W-2?
no.
No. The IRS asks us that you wait 28 days. Because that, if you notice, and if you look at your last paycheck stub, people think, well, I've got my last paycheck stub. Well, how many people bring their last paycheck stub and it's dated like December 15th? I'm like, no, that's not your last one. There's one more. What's the last one I have? No. But even if you look at the last one and you look at the W-2, I don't want to say always, but many, many times there's a discrepancy because they haven't been reconciled. There's always that little something that's missing. And there's a little piece of information that could be missing. And that little piece of information could hold up your tax return for 6 months. And I've actually seen it happen where you'll get a letter back, 4 weeks later, you're expecting your back saying, we need an ID verification, we need an employer verification, we need something. So sometimes it's just better to wait. Now, if your employer's gone out of business, which happened a lot during COVID, we had a lot of people close their doors and not reopen. Most people still got their W-2s, but there were some people that didn't. There were a few where the business just disappeared. There is a procedure for that. There are some steps we can take. There is a form, because the IRS has a form for everything. There is a form that you fill out with it, and you process it that way, and that is a paper file. But a lot of people don't. But you have to give your employer some time to get it to you. So those are the dates that are coming up. The 31st, your employer has to have those W-2s, 1099s. Now, so that's really it about with North Carolina. We don't know. We don't know anything, and they're not telling us anything. Well, what was the reason? Did they give a reason why they were going to be late?
Budget, maybe?
Something
There was some internal issue that caused the delay.
with the budget. Yeah, they didn't have any money. Which, it's hard to give a refund when you don't have any money, Tom. Well, that happened one year. Remember when we had our governor, I forgot her name. We had our governor, and she wanted to tap into the emergency budget money, the money that we have set aside for things like hurricane damage, those unimportant funds. That's what she called them. She said, well, they're not really, those funds are not that important. Okay, if you live on the coast of North Carolina, the emergency hurricane fund is, pretty important. Okay? That is, you live up in Asheville where you have, snowfall and all the issues with that. Yeah, that emergency fund's important. Well, she wanted to take that money and she wanted to take some other, superfluous money like health care or something. I don't know, something like that. Something that people really didn't need and use it to pay back refunds. Well, yeah, I know. And the whatever those guys are called, the people we vote for.
Assembly?
The Assembly, thank you. That's why I have you here, Emily. Fill in the gaps for me. The Assembly voted no, which they were doing what they're supposed to be doing, protecting the people on the coast. That's their money. So she wanted to take that money because they didn't have any money to give refunds. And she said, well, the people are going to have to wait for their refunds. And the one speaker of the House, whatever, said, they'll wait. It's not our fault that Department of Revenue didn't allocate properly. So, yeah, that was a big, big deal that year. I remember that. And it wasn't that long ago. So what's going to happen, we don't know. But I know what you can do. Stay tuned to Gilbert Talks Taxes. Saturday mornings, WCAB. And you'll hear all about it. Okay, December. December's gone. January 15th came and left. What was important about January 15th, Emily?
Estimated tax payments?
Yes, that's why you're an enrolled agent. Estimated tax payments were due January 15th. Now, some people didn't pay it. Okay, you didn't pay it. Nothing you can do now. You can't retroactively pay it. Actually, I have had people mail it a couple of days afterwards thinking, it's going to be okay. Emily's shaking her head. No. What happens and what has happened is they will post it. So let's say January 18th, you see that little voucher. You got to mail a check. The little voucher that was supposed to be in the mail before the 15th. You're like, well, let's go ahead and send that money now. It'll be okay. They'll post it not to 2022. They'll post it to 2023. North Carolina will not unpost it. The IRS won't unpost it either. Now, one time, I was actually able to have them do one only because it had been electronically filed. So it was in the system electronic, and they were able to take it and assign it to the quarter before. And they said it was a system problem. The system should not have done it. But that was the only reason. But so when they get it and they assign it, which, okay, so you'll get credit for it in 2023, but if it's a big estimated tax payment, like some of our people have to make, I mean, there are people that make $20,000, $30,000, $10,000 estimated tax payments. That's money you're going to owe now with penalty. I know. So that date came and left. Now, there is a little known rule that if you didn't make that January 15th tax payment and you can get your tax return done by today, the 28th, actually tomorrow because the 28th Monday, which would be the 30th because the 28th falls on a Saturday. If you can get your tax return done by Monday
and send the payment with it,
and you owe, and you send what you owe, you pay it in full. So let's say you had to send a $1,000 estimated tax payment January 15th. You didn't do it, but hey, you can pull this tax return together. Gilbert's your accountant, so everything's done, right? And Gilbert will pull this together, and you owe $2,000. If you can go ahead and file that return and pay that $2,000, there will be no penalty for failure to send estimated tax payment. Which, again, those numbers are very small. Literally, the penalty is on $1,000 would be like $8. So most people are like, let's not worry about it. We'll get it. We'll go ahead and take care of it. So the penalty is very small. But so that date came and left. Now, if you can do your tax return by Monday and make the payment, you won't pay it. The next deadline is March 15th. March 15th is for what, Emily?
partnerships and S corporations.
What form is an S corporation?
1120S.
Right. Is there any such thing as, see, I love quizzing her. See, it keeps her on her toes. Is there any such thing as an LLC tax return?
No.
Yeah. Have you heard that a lot? Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An LLC is a type of business, but it has an option of a couple different tax returns.
Actually,
Depending on how they do business.
how you set it up. And it can be changed depending on how things change. I'm in the middle right now of a review. I'm reviewing a business that got set up as a partnership many years ago. We're talking multi-generational business. Got set up as a partnership, and I asked the principals now, I said, well, why are you set up? Not that I thought there was anything wrong with it. Everything looked perfectly fine, but I asked the question, why was it set up as a partnership? And they all looked at each other and said, we don't know. None of the original partners are still alive. So it's all been, secession and reformed again, and they keep reforming as a partnership. And I said, because it seemed to me that let's at least review the thing and look at it. There were assets on the depreciation sheet that they didn't even own anymore. Nobody had bothered to take them off. Just, decades of tax preparation, just getting it through and getting it done and meeting the deadline, and nobody stops and says, what is this thing I hold in my right hand? That was not a planned tie-in, by the way. That just came right back. What is this thing I hold in my right hand? Truth or lie? So we're doing one. I'm doing one right now. I'm just looking at it. Is S Corp election, and actually with the low corporate rate and the way they're set up, I said let's at least look at C Corp status because they're all on payroll. They all work for this entity. So anyway, it's worth stopping to look at it. But March 15th deadline is for 1065s, your partnerships, and your 1120 S's. And why do we do those a month before the April 15th deadline?
Because they issue K-1s to the partners or the members, and they have to have that for their April deadline tax returns.
Exactly, and that's that April 15th deadline. Now, this year, April 15th falls on a Saturday, and so it kicks it to the Monday. Monday is a holiday, so we have till April 18th this year. So procrastinators have another 3 days, and they will too. They will show up. Oh, Tom, it is bad. They show up at my office door. They will show up Tuesday at like 5 o'clock. When's this tax return due? They know when it's due. Can you take care of this for me? But we can file extensions right up until midnight, and we do. If you know, and I want to end this section with this, if you know that you're having a problem and you're not going to be able to get your business tax return done, because there are people that, things happen, businesses right now, you're not going to get it done. Or you think you might even be having a problem, go ahead and file an extension. Go ahead and do it now. I've actually had some people already call me and say, I don't know that I'm going to be able to meet that March 15th deadline. We're traveling. We're the one member's got some health issues, and he just said, I really think I'm just going to need some time. And let's just file an extension. Don't stress yourself out over it. It's free to do an extension with the IRS. If you think you're going to owe, you can go ahead and make an estimated tax payment. Now, you don't have to pay that till the 15th, but you can go ahead and file the extension now. You can actually go ahead and set that up, to come out on the 15th or whenever you have the money. But if you think you're going to owe, you can go ahead and send money with that extension. But go ahead and do the extension now, or as soon as you know you're just not going to do it. Get it done. Same thing with your individual. If by April 18th you can't do it, you can go ahead and always file an extension early. It doesn't mean you have to extend. You can file an extension and then come back and file a tax return timely anyway. And I know why they don't do automatic extensions. Like should be just automatic for everybody, because then everybody will procrastinate until October.
Please no.
I know. I always tell the story about the man when the IRS did those extensions to June with the pandemic extensions. The man called me up and said, finally, the IRS is on my schedule. Let's take a break. This is Gilbert Talks Taxes, WCAB, AM 590, FM 100.9. I want to tell you about another great local business, Forest City Concrete and Grading. Call Sean at 828-447-5949. Sean is a licensed general contractor. He can do your job from site development to completion. That's Forest City Concrete and Grading. Call Sean at 828-447-5949 and tell him Gilbert Talks Taxes sent you.
Jesse James Railroad Express has moved to a new location, 126 Park Lane Plaza in Rutherfordton, and they've changed their name, Jesse James Chowhound Canteen. A new name, a new place, and a limited menu. Currently, you can get smoked sausages, kielbasa's, and of course those delicious hot dogs. And you can get coleslaw, macaroni and cheese, and potato salad. Stay tuned for their new menu at their new place. Hours are Tuesday through Saturdays from 11 until 2, closed Sundays and Mondays. Jesse James Chowhound Canteen, 126 Park Lane Plaza in Rutherfordton. Call 286-9368 and get a 99-cent hot dog with mustard, chili, and onions, Tuesdays only.
Hi, this is Christy. Gilbert and I are excited to announce our new name and location. Carmona Financial Consultants at 704 Oak Street in Forest City. Let us help you with your taxes. Let us help you with your investments. Carmona Financial Consultants at 704 Oak Street in Forest City. Stop by or give us a call at 828-289-9300.
We are back. Gilbert Talks Taxes. Gilbert and Emily Talk Taxes. WCAB AM 590 FM 100.9. Now, let me give my telephone number again. We are doing tax returns. Business, personal, corporate, not-for-profit, trusts, estates. We do them all. The telephone number is 828-289-9300. You can make an appointment for our Forest City location. We're at 704 Oak Street, or in Tryon, 226 South Trade Street. And we'd love to talk to you and help you. We also do investments, but right now, our focus right now is the tax returns. Now, if you're considering opening up an IRA for the tax benefit, you do have till April 18th to open up an individual IRA and fund that IRA for 2022. So I don't mention that enough because I know I get phone calls from people. Can I still do that IRA thing? Yes, you can. You have until April 18th. Now, extending your tax return does not extend that deadline. That is a pretty hard deadline, but you can actually fully fund your IRA and get credit for it for last year. And it's a great tax planning tool. I mean, a lot of times we'll be sitting down, people owe a little money. They're like, what can I do? And I'll say, did you fund your IRA? Do you have a retirement plan at work? No. Did you fund your IRA? No, I haven't funded that thing in years. I hear that a lot. Because it was the thing of years ago, and then it kind of people stopped doing it there for a while. I think with the pandemic, people just laid off of it, but people are getting back into it. And so we do that. Okay, I want to talk about, real quick. So we talk about businesses, and I say this, okay, you got to have every receipt, right? Save your receipts. I drive it pretty hard because if you show any wavering at all, people will go from trying to save every receipt to having no receipts. So I try to hit it pretty hard. But the truth of the matter is that tax courts have ruled over and over again, there was a ruling not too long ago, that the IRS cannot reasonably expect every taxpayer to have every receipt for every dime they spend. And I'm mostly talking to you business people out there. They understand that you put that, you went to the hot spot to get gas. You got that receipt from the little machine. You put it on your dashboard. You got a phone call. You forgot it's on the dashboard. By the time the sun hit it for about 8 hours, it turned that receipt into a white piece of paper.
How about the time the thing didn't even give you the receipt?
Didn't give you the receipt?
Out of paper.
Yeah, this has happened to me where, I'm coming home late at night because, I'm a tax preparer and, I use those non-productive sleeping hours to do tax returns. So I'm coming home late at night and you stop at the gas station that's closed to get gas at the pump there. You pay at the pump and then you're waiting for your receipt and it makes that little crunching sound and you know that your receipt's in there somewhere, but it didn't come out through the slot.
Usually it just goes, and
Yeah.
then nothing comes out.
And then nothing comes out, and the place is closed, and you can't go and get a receipt. So what do? And the IRS, the courts understood this, and there are things too where it's just not practical to get a receipt. You've been in big cities. Now it's different now with Uber because everything's done on an app, but old school taxi, they don't give you a receipt. You give them, you give them a tip, you pay, whatever. And I mean, a taxi ride in a big city can cost you $30, $40. And if you've ever been to Washington D.C. and ridden a cab, I mean, you haven't lived till you've spent $75 on a cab fare. Yeah. So they don't give you a receipt. So what do? So the courts have repeatedly told the IRS that people just lose receipts. It's okay. Then there have been cases that have gone to it. So if the myth has been if you can't prove a deduction in writing, it won't be allowed by an auditor because you're required to keep records. Okay, the truth is, I just told you the courts have said it. Now, there's kind of I don't want to say it's a hard line, but the tax regulation, now this is in code that with just a few exceptions, anything under $75, you can claim without receipts, and that you can actually reconstruct records. And what's involved in reconstructing records? Well, there's a lot of things. If you were traveling, like the example I just used with the cab fare, well, you were in New York or you were whatever on a business trip, Atlanta, you obviously had to get around somehow.
But you spent more than $75.
Well, I did in Washington, but that's okay. But again, it's $75 is not a hard line. There is some leeway there, but there is a thing called reconstruction of records, and that is allowable. What I tell people is, if you didn't get a receipt, just make a note somewhere. At least, even if you just jot yourself a note, and you at least have a record, a written record. Because doing this in the middle of an audit is stressful enough, and then trying to remember every little receipt in an audit, it gets very crazy. The only thing that you have to have receipts for regardless of the price, is lodging. Why? I don't know. But it's just an IRS hard line. Lodging expenses require receipts no matter the amount. That is codified in law. Why lodging? I don't know. But of all the things to pick, lodging is the one. But you can do an oral explanation, and you can have notes. We were on this business trip. We did this. Our luggage got lost. Our receipts were in our luggage. Whatever the explanation is, it doesn't matter. You're allowed to recreate those. And there was actually a law case in 1975 that actually codified a lot of this. And there was actually, the man spent $1,200 on a rental office, and he paid a lot of it cash to just a lot of guys that came and did just small work. They let him write the whole thing off because the auditor is sitting in this office that was obviously remodeled. So there was a whole thing. And I talked earlier about the Cohen rule. So George Cohen, I still got some time, right? We got 7 minutes. Here, I'm rushing through this, thinking the clock is ticking here. 7 minutes is eternity in radio time, Emily. It's a long time. So, George M. Cohen. No, that was not, his middle name is not, I've got notes here. His middle name is not, I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy. That's what he was famous for. Actually, he wrote a lot of our songs that the soldiers in World War I, the Doughboys, a lot of their marching songs, and a lot of, Over There. Over There, Tom. That's right. I forgot that. And there was, quite a few that he did that became almost national anthems over here when the Doughboys came back and the armistice and all that. So he actually, because that's that story, he wanted to enlist to go to World War I, and he couldn't because of health issues. Or he was 4F because of something. And then and the guy said, we need you over here more than over there. And that's how he wrote that song. I remember that. Childhood history class, So he actually got audited. Now, that was back when the tax tables were 80 and 90% for the top tax earners. I know Emily's blinking at me. Emily's in the yes. We actually have some of the lowest tax tables now that we've ever had, and it still seems like we're paying a lot. Can you imagine 60, 70, 80% tax tables? Now that was for the wealthiest, 1 and 2%. They paid. I mean, the story. Elvis Presley for years paid 80 to 90% of his income in taxes. Yeah, well, he let the IRS do his tax return for him. Yeah, don't ever do that. Hire a professional. So Cohen got audited, and this was a big deal, and he actually fought the IRS all the way to the U.S. Court of Appeals. And they actually heard his case, and it was all involving not having receipts. And his argument was, he's a very busy person. He travels all over the country. Back then when traveling was difficult in the 20s, in the teens and the 20s, he was in all the big cities, and he didn't have receipts. The IRS really nailed him, so it went all the way to the Court of Appeals, and it said basically the upshot is that first you must make some showing of why the records are not available. They may have been lost or destroyed or be in such small amounts that the transaction for the receipts are not normally giving. Again, I use cab fares, tips, things like that. You go buy a candy bar. Well, you go to a fast food restaurant. Although
like a vending machine.
Vending machine. That's a great one. And that's one that people, especially if you're at a convention or a trade show or something, you could literally spend a lot of money at vending machines. And hotel vending machines, a candy bar is $4. So, yeah. The rule can't be applied to approximate travels or meals. Again, the IRS, for travel and lodging, you have to have receipts. That's the one thing that came out. So the Cohen rule has actually become kind of a bargaining thing in an audit. That now I've never used it because I've never had it at that level, but I have heard of other people that have said the Cohen rule, I don't have to have documentation for that, but they can claim it. But don't put yourself in that place. Business people, try to save every receipt. In the example I said earlier, the receipt that came out of the machine and you put it on your dashboard and it bleached it white, just take a pen and make a note. Gas, 1/27/2023 at the hot spot, $75.
I had a client give me a photograph of the gas meter and the gallons and the amount and the date stamp.
The date stamp photograph. That actually will work. They will accept that. That's a good one. I'm glad you shared that one.
And if you use your card at the vending machine, some of them take cards now. It'll come up on your statement, vending, whatever, and you could theoretically use that as documentation.
And it'll document that you're there. That's the more important thing. Also, is it documents you were there. You were at that convention. So there's no or wherever you were. So there's no arguing there. The problem with, and this is why we have to draw such a hard line, because we try to get people in the habit. The problem with getting people in the habit of using their debit all the time and not saving receipts is they said, well, I have a bank statement.
But that doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work. I had an auditor, North Carolina auditor, who we had to go through Lowe's and Home Depot receipts from his Lowe's and Home Depot credit card, because she said, how do I know you didn't take this and build a deck at your house? Because the example was he didn't have a receipt for a bunch of lumber. Because all it says on the credit card, especially if you use your bank debit card, if you use the Lowe's card, it gives you a little bit of a breakout on the statement because it's Lowe's. But if you use a bank, all it says is Lowe's, $3,000.
And the location is usually the main location of the company, so it doesn't necessarily say where you were when you bought that.
Exactly.
It'd be California somewhere because that's their main office.
Exactly. And that's what they say. And the same thing with Walmart. I was at Walmart because people buy a lot of things at Walmart for their business, especially people that'll buy snacks and things for the office. So you really save those receipts. Don't make me have to use the Cohen rule.
And
in
keep
the
them
audit.
in a nice folder, flat,